advancing the power of education around the world. Welcome to the Cyanna Podcast.
Guys, thanks for joining us today. Excited to be back here for the Cyanna Podcast. Again, my co-host to my left here, Mr. Danny Ortiz.
What's going on, man? How you doing, sir?
Doing good. Myself, Scott Shelton, creative director at Scholar House Media. We're very excited to be here today with the CTO, the Chief Technical, what's the O stand for?
Officer,
The officer. The
tell
Chief Technical Officer for Cyanna Education Services, and really the lead developer of EDlumina, Mr. David Stump. David, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me here, Scott.
Absolutely. We've been excited about this one for a while because Danny and I love tech. We are two tech guys, right? And
we love tech.
And so to have you here today to talk about cutting edge technology in the Edtech world and the EDlumina platform is really what we've been looking forward to for a while. So, but let's set the groundwork for our listeners and our viewers today. As the CTO at Cyanna, right, as the lead developer of EDlumina, what does that mean? What do you do in your role? And you can talk big picture down to like, how do you manage this beast?
Sure. So I've been on teams of every size, and Cyanna is no different in that I wear about every hat there is to wear a lot of times. We've made a whole lot of progress in the last, I want to say year, and I get to develop more than I have in the past 4 or 5 years, which is fantastic. So right now, I would say
you're more hands-on when you say you get to develop. You're hands-on in the code. You're not just
correct. Yeah. So
making orders from up on high.
No. I wrote the first lines of the current EDlumina, like Rails new, to the deploy I did last night at 6.
I gotta stop you right there. What do you mean the first lines for those folks out there that don't understand tech language?
There you go.
So the founder of Cyanna, Chris Eccles, had the idea for EDlumina back in 2008, and that existed, and it was an older application, and they really reached the limits of what they could do with that application. And so I don't want to dovetail too much into background stuff, but they reached out to a company that I used to work with doing consulting to basically write this from nothing. And very long story, I was privileged enough to start with Chris in 2018. And at that point, we had some designs and we had an idea of what they had done before with EDlumina, but the instruction was come up with what it can be. And so it's written in a language called Ruby on Rails, and the first lines you ever write are Rails new, and that's how you start a new application.
That's what I wanted to get to.
So my MO, anytime I ever start a new application, and you can find it in GitHub for EDlumina, the first commit is just a rocket ship emoji, and so the very first line of EDlumina is a commit of basically the scaffolding of what I wanted EDlumina to be and what I wanted the server to look like, and the commit message was just a little rocket ship. So it's this there today from 2018.
That's funny. Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So what is your role then as CTO? What do you oversee? What are you in charge of? Who do you have under you or beside you?
So my role when we really started this, it's kind of like a bell curve. When we started this, I was headphones on because we had deadlines. We needed to get this out of the door as rapidly as possible. So I was pretty much head down building for the first part of 2018, and I had 2 other developers with me. Michael is actually one of the ones that's still here. Love him to death. He's fantastic. So he and I are kind of the ones that started it, and then after that, it kind of ballooned into, there was a whole lot of logistical questions about what comes next for EDlumina, onboarding more people onto the team, getting a support staff kind of in place, and all those logistical questions to where it could kind of run by itself as a software entity inside of Cyanna, which is primarily a consulting, an educational consulting company at that time. And once. And this is all probably within the last year, it got all smooth sailing, all the logistics are set up. I'm in my happy place now because I put my headphones on and I build most days anymore. And
That's
so I'm lucky enough, I work, Manny, who you know, I work with Manny, and Manny is a lifesaver in that all of my various meetings from before and funneling all these things together, because
tasks, requests,
with any
fixes.
software, everybody has slightly different support, wants something different. They're getting something in their ear from the clients that want something. Growth wants something different, like the Chris and the Todds of the world. They want something different to be like the future, not the now. And you got to kind of marry all of those. And so one of the struggles for a long time was, it's the same in any tech world, is trying to balance talking to people about what we could do and then actually doing it,
Sure.
And as you know very well, usually late at night is when you get to actually do. So we've I think grown enough as a company, been fortunate enough with the number and the type of clients that we have, that I am able now to let him kind of filter and decide, this is the next priority, this is the next thing we're going to do, have those conversations. And then he and I have a really, really close relationship where he can just tell me, like, here's the next 3 things, here's what so-and-so wants, here's what so-and-so wants. And then I can kind of be back to what my passion is, which is left to making a technical decision about it. So I can...
He keeps you organized. He keeps everything prioritized.
Correct.
Right.
And then I can say, from that point, we can do this, but let's do it just slightly differently, because it will be 100 times as performant. It will be, I actually went to graduate school for human-computer interaction, which is pretty much the study of like usability. Technically, it's the study of like the psychology behind how humans use computers. And I had to decide if I wanted to go to computer science and be more the deep dive technical role or the human-computer interaction side. And I went the human-computer interaction side because I've always been fascinated with how can you make this work just a little bit better for someone? Like, there's the critical important part of it's got to work. Like that's the foundations. It has to work, but like, how do you tweak it so that it makes someone's day easier? And so that's my passion. And that's what I feel like we're really in our stride now, of being able to stop as we're developing a feature and say, I know this person wants this, I know this person wants this. This will meet both, but we can make this adjustment and our clients will like it better. Our new clients will like it better. You know what I mean? And it'll be easier to use.
So while you say you're building, do you like to build something that hasn't been built, that no one has talked to you about? Or is it better for you to then answer a problem that was created out of just the use? What is the best for you? Do you like to do both? Or do you like to just start thinking ahead and saying, this is where I think the industry is heading and I want to do this to it? Or is it better just always answering those, questions and the new features?
I do have a number of conversations with Chris Eccles, but one of my favorite things is I will just brainstorm with Manny during the week, and I'll have a lot of conversations. I have at least a couple of conversations a week with the COO Allison, talking about this is. I'm just coming up with something like the NVIDIA just made a huge push in some AI development with some of the stuff that they're pushing through, and it doesn't really seem that related because it's a graphics card company. You know what I mean?
Oh wow.
But one of the people that works for us, who you've talked to before, Jeff Reese, in the XR world, it's big in his world because they made some really big pushes in laying some foundations for augmented reality, virtual reality. And I know it's a buzzword, but like the metaverse, one of the big problems with the metaverse in his world was everybody says it, but there has to be one common place. Like if there's going to be a digital property rights for this studio and you buy it, you only own it on Facebook if they have a platform. You don't own it on Apple's platform. You don't own it on Google's platform. There isn't a government with parcels of land. There's not like a central. Yeah. Well, one of the things, this is total conjecture, but one of the things that I find fascinating, like, is that all of one of the underlying text between all of those is graphics. There's a lot of graphics underneath all of that. So that kind of thing fascinates me. To kind of semi-answer your question is like, I like looking at stuff like that, which is, it's not necessarily a specific Edtech. It's not even a specific thing that's related immediately to what we're doing. But that has the ability to change everything down the line.
Yeah.
You talk about how you're, how you're digesting content. And I think a lot of people know, not to rehash what I'm sure Jeff already said, but I think a lot of people know where some of the industries going with virtual reality and augmented reality and some of the things like that. But one of the problems that you run into is how expensive it is, and it has been in the past, to create that. But if you look at the target audience for a lot of, in EdTech, it's students.
That's a big issue.
I'm used to AAA video games.
Yeah.
And I'm turning 40 in a month, right? And I'm used to that set of graphics. That's all the kids have known. You know what I mean? That's all those potential students have known. And so you can't come out with something that's like, do you need AAA video game graphics in an education setting? No. But are they gonna reject it if you don't have that? Because that's what they see. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so that's
a lot of things to do.
So to your earlier point though, what you're seeing with the NVIDIA card and their updates is laying a much larger foundation for what's possible in the future and on the consumer level.
Correct. And to answer your question, like, I like to talk through and think those things through. Having done this long enough and in consulting world, I like to talk through those. When I was younger, I used to like to just start coding those types of things, figure out how AI works and stuff like that. As I'm older and have more to do and a son, I like figuring out a way that we can quickly get something done that's gonna be useful and deployable as quick as possible. So it's like, I like having the conversations, but if I'm just putting my headphones on, I generally like tackling whatever the next big thing is that I think we can quickly get out the door for EDlumina, that I know, not to name who he's with, but like Andrew emailed me the other day and be like, I didn't even know you guys released this, and this thing's fabulous because it just saved me 2 hours a day. Like, it wasn't released for him, it wasn't built for him, but that's what motivates me.
Scott, you said something great though. We building it though in a way where it can breathe, where you can attach different things to it as we grow, right? Because I think some programmers or developers, they'll develop themselves into a corner.
Oh yeah.
And we're not trying to do that here, right? We're trying to develop in a way where we're flexible and seeing what's happening in the future. Maybe we're not there, but we're also adding and can add at any time.
Sure. Yeah. We everything that we do, this is TMI tech speak probably. Everything that we do is API based. So even the front end, literally everything that we do, from student data to everything else, makes even our own, like all of our own internal work, makes an API call to EDlumina. And so what that allows us to do is, we've had clients recently that want kind of enhanced SMS capabilities, and we're in conversations with a partner that we can integrate. And that lift isn't very great for us usually, to integrate with other partners and bring more possibilities to the table because of the foundation we laid. To tie it back to you asking me what I did, that was the biggest part of after EDlumina existed. Like, it had to exist before you can optimize it. Like, after it
has to exist.
You have to have a student, like, you know what I mean?
It can play with
Correct.
others, and connect with other options.
So the first part was just headphones on. It has to exist. But one of the things, this ties back just a little bit about me. I've worked at agencies. I've worked at startups. Immediately prior to this, I worked at one of the top Ruby consulting companies. And one of the cool things about the Ruby consulting, or about any consulting world, anywhere, not even in software, is just that it's there's the stress of meeting your client's expectations, but there's not the stress of make it and the company makes more money, or don't get it right and the company doesn't make more money. You're just a consultant, right? Mm-hmm. The downside is you never get to see what you built, live and breathe. So I knew, like, in my heart, like, I knew how to make a system that was easy and that you could just iterate and build things quickly, and it would be enjoyable and fast to add things to it. I knew I could do it, and I did it numerous times, and you got the feedback. But the negative was I never got to enjoy it. I never got to be the one.
You're not the end user.
Right? And so that's where I am now, is I'm reaping what I hoped I would get to in 2018 and 2019, where we get features that everybody else has put on a week, 2 weeks, a month, or whatever, and it's a day or two. And a lot of that, like 90% of that, is because of work we did at the beginning to make it that way. And that ties directly into, like I said, making everything API based, making everything consistent.
So I want to take a step back here, because I'm extremely interested in the development process of
so much good stuff here.
I know, right? But I think we also, for our viewers, we have to take a little step back and establish what the baseline. So just really quickly, what is EDlumina as a product? How does it work?
Sure.
Right, and what makes it special?
Sure. So EDlumina is kind of an all-encompassing educational platform for a school. So its heart and where it started at is a CRM, a lead system, customer relationship manager. And the entry point for most of our clients is they will API in or send in leads that get digested
from their website.
From
So
their
they connect
website,
from their website, and then
from
a new
various
student
sources.
fills
Yep.
out a form, says, yes, I want to learn more about your cosmetology school, about whatever. They fill out the form. The lead goes into this software.
Correct. And then from that point on, one of the most important tenets for EDlumina, and I'm going to say Edtech, that's now not the virtual reality, like it's coming, but like the now is its customizability and its data. Those are the two like must-haves in EdTech. And so for ours, one of the biggest things is every part of the admissions flow is customizable. Every step that a lead goes through can be different per program, per campus, like you can each have your own individual like admissions inbounding workflow. And one of the crazy things about that is that blows my mind is our support staff worked at schools. And so it's not like I did not work at a school. I'm from the tech world. They can tell people I've done admissions for 10 years and give them advice on setting up their steps, on improving their
reporting,
improving their workflow.
Yeah, optimizing. Yeah.
And one of the critical things for us with EDlumina and the customizability is I don't do that anymore. And so like when we started, if they needed stuff adjusted, like I would tweak it. It's all been built now so that like the support representatives and the schools themselves can customize the steps. The support can integrate a different financial aid provider, whatever else.
Sure.
From a super admin they have and not from EDlumina. And then so the EDlumina will take that lead through whatever customized steps somebody wants, all the way through enrollment, where they track their enrollment, what date they enrolled in the school. It'll save all the digital documents you can upload. You can sign documents in EDlumina. So that's the heart of EDlumina, is the CRM and getting somebody from potentially being interested in your school to having paid and enrolled in your school.
Correct.
I think you made a great point, David, that we do our own support.
Correct. Yes.
That's very important.
Yep.
Because we don't outsource it. It's not other folks from another place. We understand the folks that actually are in education, that are actually supporting this, and they're going to get somebody in our team that's going to talk to them, right?
Correct. And I talk with Samantha Bauer daily, and she's the lead of our support. And so I always wanted it so that there would be somebody in charge of the product and the growth, and that was Manny, who I talked about earlier, and somebody else who was in charge of the customers and their needs and their growth. And then the two of them combined come up with what is this kind of perfect path forward to meet everybody's needs. A customer will ask Samantha a question, and Samantha and Aaron and Manny will all talk. I will talk with Sam almost every single day. And that to me is still mind-blowing. It's not like we're huge. It's not like have taken over the world or anything, but the CTO of a company and the person who literally is coding it, like I will deploy a quick change for a conversation that Sam had an hour later. And having worked in a lot of software,
it does not move
that doesn't
fast.
happen.
That's not super common. It's not like we're the only ones, but it's a hard thing to build.
So you said, quote, making a lot of people happy,
Yep.
right? All right.
I was going to go there.
Right. And so how many, just roughly, like how many schools, campuses, students, users do you have on this platform currently?
So I know there are 30 to 40 in the recent weeks. I know there's been 70 institutions created on the back end over time. So
you have a lot of stakeholders involved. You have users, school owners, admins, students,
and those are from various sizes. Like we have some
small
giant
schools, big schools,
some giant ones that
multiple campuses, multiple locations to the little mom and pop school, right?
We've had some tests and thankfully passed with flying colors. One of our larger clients that runs an institution pointed at EDlumina, and they use it for all the dissemination of their content, wrote us kind of a panicked text message because they forgot to let us know that they were telling 30,000 students to point to EDlumina at the same time to complete something.
Wow.
Thankfully, it went off without a hitch. Like we had done our homework. It should have been great. It should have been smooth. There should have been no problems.
Sure.
But there's always the we like a heads up just so we're like
Yeah.
totally sure. And so that's another part of, like I said, the groundwork, the like early work in EDlumina, where like you know you can do it and you've done it before, but like I got to see like I didn't have to do anything. I didn't have to. That's
great. It's good.
I didn't have to.
That's a good
I
feeling.
didn't have to throw, fire. I mean, I've been at companies before where you're at that point you're in a fire sale and throwing servers at it and doing whatever you could do.
Sure.
It handled it like a breeze.
So you've talked a bit about it a little bit already, but I'm interested. So you have all of this, all these people that could be affected by your work, that are affected by your work,
Sure.
right? And so you're trying to make everybody happy. You want stability, but you want this, you want this top-notch software for all of these different users. What's it like to develop in this industry, in this arena? What are like some of like your lessons learned about? And you don't have to tell us all of like the pitfalls, but I'm sure that there have been a few. Well, what's it like to develop for a platform with that many users on it?
So it's a balance of QA. It's a balance of being detail-oriented in QA, and it's a balance of something that's probably going to make our stakeholders cringe a little bit, but this is the honest truth. Done is better than perfect. And so like we do have stringent QA tests that we go through and flows that we go through, but at the same time, I will push multiple times every day to EDlumina, and that's the approach that we want to keep going with. And the goal and what has existed recently is we have notes and alerts that come up like most software when we release new features.
Sure.
And it's not obtrusive. It doesn't get in your way. But the goal is they see that and they be like, man, this thing just shows up all the time. And it is because like yesterday I deployed a whole new like recurring event feature to EDlumina, and it was just pushed out the door. A new guide went up, but you do have to be extremely careful. And it's circling back around to, there's a lot of hard work up at front when you're starting an application, because it's not just getting the code to work. Like it has to work before you can do any of this. But then you have to build a process to where almost every single feature that goes out, Manny, our product owner, will look at, and our entire support team will look at it so they know. And depending on who it involves, Ashley and our sales team will look at it and make sure that they know what's going on, and it's not something that they've heard different, or that it's something that they can tell potential customers and current customers about. So there's this whole flow of people that get involved, but we stagger that flow in such a way that we can just be constantly releasing new features, because it's nothing unique to EdTech. It's all software. I mean, it's always a race condition. You know what I mean? Like it's always, the longer you sit on a good idea, the longer it is that someone else will build that good idea. And I've, working in the consulting industry, I had a gentleman once there's a software a long time ago called Cloud. It was like a social media score. He built, before Cloud existed, the exact same thing and kept worrying about nuances. And I mean, for probably 2 years, he paid us to keep adjusting the score, keep adjusting the look. In that 2 years, Cloud launched and he never released.
Wow.
Because
he just did a launch.
No, he had investors, and they were like, even if we release now, Cloud's got everybody. They beat him to the horse. So that's just it's not a particularly unique story in software, but it is software. Sure. You know what I mean? Like anybody could come out with anything, and so it is tough though. You've got to come up with a balancing act of being careful, but also not being stale. The longer you let a product sit, just like any living, breathing thing, an old CTO once told me, the longer you let it sit there, the faster it will rot.
So how many product features have we released since Lumina started that you can think of?
All of them. I cannot count how many document builders and event calendars and recurring events and being able to do e-signatures. I don't.
So you said this earlier. You was like, "We not huge, but man, this is a big deal." I mean, there's a lot of. That's why I asked the question. Because you have thousands of people that are looking to be in this and to be a part of it and actually use it. But then we are constantly adding, right, to make it easier on the user, right? That's the name of the game, right?
And again, not something unique to EdTech, not something unique to our world, but it really is. There's a lot. There are 7 figures of leads and students in this system,
Wow.
Hundreds of thousands of online documents, different online documents, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But the one thing that I always think about, like if I'm releasing a new feature, deploying a new feature, we have the CRM, we have the SIS, we have, we tie into LMSs. It's the whole graduation and placement. It's the whole school life cycle. But the thing that keeps me up if I'm releasing something is admissions. And that's usually because there are admissions rep that Scott knows very well in the morning that come in and that's their job. That's their paycheck.
That's all they do, yeah.
That's the schools. That's keeping the school open. And we actually had, I talked to a reporter from the Dayton Daily News during COVID. For anybody that doesn't know, I live in Dayton, Ohio. During COVID, because we were in this unique situation where the software that I wrote was booming because of the online education, growth at the time. And we were fortunate, and it was great. But like seeing and hearing what the schools were talking about, the schools were struggling and worried about closing because of enrollment numbers. And then if they had me help them with, SMS or whatever, you'd see messages come through with people talking about like, I'm worried about my job and feeding my kids. I can't really think about like switching careers now or going to another school. And so like, it was this weird, bittersweet thing of what you built's doing well and you're experiencing a lot of growth. But everybody's going through kind of a weird time. So, but you asked me that stays on my mind. And then it's always like, it's generally like at 8 a.m. I can see everything start to spike up. 8 a.m. Eastern, usually. A lot of ours are on Eastern, but not all, but you just see it spike up. And if we weren't careful enough, they can't process their leads, and that's how they have value to the company and keep their jobs, that individual person. And then that's how the school stays open. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So looking ahead, right? You've worked in EdTech for a number of years now, right? Mm-hmm. And Cyanna is, as you said, Chris and Todd, always looking ahead, what's next or what's in the future, which is part of what I just love about this company. But, what are you most excited about, either in what Cyanna is focused on, forward facing, or just what's ahead in the future of EdTech that has you most excited?
So the two things that I would probably say, I'm going to say them first to make you keep me honest and not ramble and not to get to either one of them, is data and then XR, virtual reality. Mm-hmm. So the first one is not new. Data's been around for eons, and it's always been important, and it is going to be important. But like I was talking about NVIDIA, this isn't related to EdTech, but NVIDIA have artificial intelligence that can. I'm going to dumb this down. This is.
Do it.
If anybody knows a lot about GPUs, they're going to write and be like, "That's not technically great."
No, this is what we want you to do.
It has artificial intelligence that can, for lack of a better term, basically remaster a game almost on the fly that companies would do, over the course of a year. And they gave a demo recently of that in their keynote, and it's one of those things that it just blows my mind. Like, data's always been important. Data's always been the king. From people 50 years ago knew that, and so that's not new. It's not like where it's going that it's not now. But the things you can do with that data are mind blowing anymore. I've toyed with, and this is on our R&D, not our roadmap, but like I've toyed with, I don't know how many AI engines to like, you can automatically generate a likely response to what somebody says. And I don't mean like a chat bot, like our hours are 9 to 5, like a legitimate, it's learned from what you, Scott, or you, Danny, say, and it has a likely response for you that you can edit. With amazing, like it's mind blowing.
Wow.
And so that, like, tying what I would call like a business engine, a prediction engine, an AI engine into that data is 1000% what excites me. Is what can we do to give to the school to say, you've come from the admissions, you've also come from the consulting, but like, what can I do to give you? It's not just here's the numbers, and I can give you numbers all day long that make a big difference in how they run their business. But can I also say, here's some red flags that in 9-12 months, based on what this thing's predicted, you should think about for compliance, for regulation, all those kind of things. And really...
So it's not just telling the story, it's predicting the story.
Correct.
Oh,
exactly.
Predicted. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Which is a lot of folks is that what like YouTube is doing and most of the folks? They're predicting the behavior?
Yeah, so a lot, I mean, it's in a lot of industries now, and the tech is getting common enough and approachable enough to where a lot of people are using it. Like I don't know why I keep harping to this NVIDIA thing, but that NVIDIA thing,
Our sponsors,
right? Our sponsors, if they would like
Please.
to, the artificial intelligence, like they, instead of having someone decide what to replace X with, it doesn't matter what it is, which takes so much computing power and so many like processes that it could never in quotes be done in real time. It's not looking at it and computing to replace. It's predicting what it will replace in the future, which is the technical how-to is nuts. But like the fact that it's predicting what it's going to do in the future and doing it ahead of time to make things more efficient is this weird.
It's almost a
First of all.
It's a self
Right? It's this
fulfilling
weird-
prophecy.
And I don't know, because I'm thinking about Terminators. I'm thinking about
exactly.
machine.
Skynet.
Yeah, right?
That's right.
I want to
Hey.
ask this question. Go ahead.
Before you ask that, one of to prevent against Terminators and all that stuff,
My brain.
a friend of mine once said, "There's an easy solution. You just make all robots so they can never power wirelessly. They don't have batteries. They're all extension cords. So that if there ever is an uprising, all you got to do is stand
unplug them.
all you got to do is stand 6 feet back, and they try to come get you to unplug themselves, and we'll all be safe."
There you go.
We have talked a lot of tech.
Yep.
Man, you gave us a lot of stuff. I mean, we can sit here for hours, and I think we're gonna come to a close here soon.
Mm-hmm.
So, I wanted to ask you a question that I want you to think about.
Sure.
Really, it's more of a person. I wanted to go to Chicago on our trip, but I couldn't go there. Right?
Yeah.
We had some interesting times in Chicago, but I want to ask just almost a personal question.
Sure.
As you look at this as like a dad, dad with a child.
Yep.
What are some of like the raw feelings that you feel like as you sit back and as you reflect on all the energy and the time and all the problem solving, all the stuff that you put into this thing, and you see it alive?
That's a tough one. It's a tough one to put into words. I feel a lot, and a lot of it comes from my background in that consulting firm where I had a great time. I really enjoyed working at the consulting company. I got to work on, it would bounce around all the time, and I got to work on some just crazy problems for some of the presidential campaign, like texting, SMS campaign applications, that kind of thing. International cuisine, like it was literally everything you could think of, and so that was a lot of fun. But I always had to hand it off. You know what I mean? Like that's what you're paid for. Like generally nobody pays for a consulting company ad infinity to work on their stuff. Like it just doesn't make any sense, right? And so the success was you hand it off and they can run it themselves and they tell you how great it is. And so then when I started this, it's like you went back to the building it again, and I'm like, I believe that I will get to benefit from this, but it's still I'm not an AI, I can't predict the future. Like you're saying, like it's still I hope I get to reap the benefits that I've handed everybody else,
Right.
You know, that we were able to hand everybody else over time. So it's hard to put into words. I think that I've gotten some emails. Like I mentioned this Andrew, I got an email from him about how this feature that it wasn't developed for them. I hadn't thought about them, but it made his daily life that much easier. It's that's what it's all about.
So rewarding.
Yeah. Right. And that's, I've had plenty of opportunities in my life to go more management, to go more high level meetings and that kind of thing. And I did that for a little while. I've always, since I've been little, like I've never had anything that feels quite like figuring out how to make something work that's a rush. Like that's pretty much across programming. You have to get addicted to that rush of getting something to work and solving that puzzle, or else it will drive you nuts and it's not the field for you. Because there's way more, this thing's broken, I can't figure out how to get this to work. And there's one moment of, all right, I figured this out. So that's programming, that's development. That's really getting into being passionate about development. The next step from that is seeing other people that love the way you solve that puzzle. You know, like that ties into the master's degree that I got. Like that's what fascinated me about that master's degree is you have to get the rush of solving the puzzle and making it work. But to really own something, like you have to get a rush from other people like the way I solve that puzzle. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and the reason I asked that question, because it's different. Like if you see a chef that's cooking, they love to cook, and they, but that food is eaten, is gone. You know what I mean? This thing is living.
Yep.
Like there's life in it. You're gonna continue to see it grow. So that's why I liken it to like a child, man. Because like a dad, you see a child grow, and that child's always gonna be in your life, man. That's got to be so rewarding.
You also got to take your person out of it a little bit sometimes, and not like let other people decide how they want to use it, where they want to go. You know what I mean? It's the same thing. You got to let them go a little bit and say, all right, fine.
Go to college.
Yeah.
Make mistakes.
Yeah, that's funny. Well, David, we're going to have you back again because we want to dive into more on the XR side of things, but we'll save that for round 2 with you.
Deal.
All right. It's been extremely insightful in a number of ways I wasn't ready for. We're going to get that NVIDIA sponsorship. That's for sure.
I hope so.
Yes.
I don't know why I was talking about that so much. It was recently.
We'll have it underneath. It's sponsored by.
That's right. That's right. But thanks again for all the time. They can check out EDlumina at edlumina.com and Cyanna, obviously, at Cyanna.com. So, Danny, thanks for your input
Always,
as well.
man.
That's
Thank
great.
you.
David, thanks.
Thank you, guys.
We'll see you guys next time.